only, the others have comorbidities, and flu disappeared when we had last year 80,000 people died of flu. Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to what you're being told. And that same mainstream media told you that we just needed to social distance for a little bit and put on masks for a little bit to flatten the curve. And here we are months and months later, and they're bringing it back, even though it hasn't helped. This is the mainstream media that is lying to you. This is the mainstream media that is putting you into fear. This is the mainstream media that has an agenda
what we've been saying
that is not in your best interests. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. But we must expose these people. We must expose these people for what's really going on. Okay? And that's very, very important. Now, I'm going to talk to you about something very important. I'm sure I'm going to talk with Todd and Cindy and Kellyanne about it as well. But if you'll remember, okay, this is huge. Okay? This is huge. On Friday, if you remember, let me just pull this up here. Let me get to here, and let me transition over here. Okay, on Friday, I brought this up. Okay, this is the President Trump's executive order on establishing the President's Advisory 1776 Commission. Okay, you remember when I brought this up on Friday? What I told you then was that I thought it odd the day before the election that he brought this up. And I told you I thought that he was pointing towards Nisara Jasara, towards the old republic. Our old republic that was changed on the date 1871. If you look, I don't know if it's on the website, but the old website and the logo, you'll see the IndoctriNATION established 1871. Okay? That was 5 years after they killed Lincoln. Okay? 5 years after they killed Lincoln and set up this corporation, because Lincoln was going to take us off the Federal Reserve, but they had to go the other direction, or was keeping the banks out. I'm sorry, the Federal Reserve hadn't been created yet. But Lincoln was keeping us out of private banking. He was wanting to create his own currency outside of the private banks. Okay? They didn't want that. They wanted to establish a private bank, but they first had to establish their own corporation. So they established the United States of America as a corporation in 1871. We have been living as subjects, as chattel of that corporation. That's why when you go to court, your name is in all capital letters. Okay? Our Social Security number came later, but we became real chattel when the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was imposed upon us along with the IRS, and we were taxed for our income, which is against their constitutional rights. But they were able to subvert the Constitution because the Constitution of 1776, okay, no longer applied to us. Why? Because we're now under a corporation. Okay? So President Trump's executive order on November 2nd, the day before the election, okay? I want to give you a couple key points. Now, I was talking about this on Friday, okay? But let me go back to this. But this document, okay, here's a couple key points that let me see. A few of you dropped with me. Thank you very much. Richard, thank you for dropping this and calling me and making sure that I saw a few things here, okay? This is very important. This was kind of couched in like an education. See, it's put under education. So the way the mainstream media couched this was that he was going to bring this into the schools, that he was going to teach make sure that we're taught how we came to be as a country, okay? But if you look at this closely, by the authority vested in me as president, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, and in order to better enable a rising generation to understand the history and principles of the founding of the United States in 1776, and through this form a more perfect union, is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1, purpose. The American founding envisioned a political order in harmony with the design of the laws of nature and of nature's God, seeing the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as embodied in and sanctioned by natural law and its traditions. Okay? Now, I'm going to go through this. This is really, really an important document. And there's a reason why he did it before the election. Okay? The formation of a republic around these principles. Now remember, folks, we do not live in a democracy. Okay? We do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic.
Yes.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. A democracy, okay, is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to eat. Okay? A democracy is not good for the minorities of this country. A democracy is not good for the minority religion in this country. Okay? That is not what we want. We want a republic which was created by geniuses back in the day to create, literally form a more perfect union. Okay? The formation of a republic around these principles marked a clear departure from previous forms of government, securing rights through a form of government that derives its legitimate power from the consent of the governed. Throughout its natural life, our republic's exploration of the full meaning of these principles has led it through the ratification of a constitution, civil war, the abolition of slavery, Reconstruction, and a series of domestic crises and world conflicts. Those events establish a clear historical record of an exceptional nation dedicated to the ideas and ideals of its founding. Against this history in recent years, a series of polemics grounded in poor scholarship has vilified our founders and our founding. Okay? Think about that. Sorry about that. Think about that. A series of polemics grounded in poor scholarship has vilified our founders and our founding. What have we seen attacked recently? Our founding fathers, their statues. They even defaced Abraham Lincoln's memorial, BLM. Really? Do you see what's going on here? They have taught our youth that the founding fathers were evil, were bad, were horrible people. Why? Because if you can chip away at the foundation of something, just like a statue, you can topple it. And that's the intent here. Because the intent is a subversion, an insurrection of the foundational the foundations of our republic. That's why President Trump won this election in a landslide. Now, am I going to tell you that without proof? No. Will I be able to prove that tonight? Partially. I will be able to show you exactly why and how they subverted this election and took over this election. Okay? You'll be shown what I'm saying to you as time passes, as the courts get involved, as the Supreme Court steps in eventually. Okay? You will see, I promise you, the rule of law in these United States upheld, and Donald John Trump will be the next president of the United States. from January to March. Hold on.
I gotta cut it off.
I'll get to that in a second. Despite the virtues and accomplishments of this nation, many students are now taught in school to hate their own country and to believe that the men and women who built it were not heroes but rather villains. This radicalized view of American history lacks perspective, obscures virtues, twists motives, ignores or distorts facts, and magnifies flaws, resulting in the truth being concealed and history disfigured. Failing to identify, challenge, and correct this distorted perspective could fray and ultimately erase the bonds that knit our country and culture together. I know it's not that much fun to look at a white screen, so I'm going to mix it up for you. The recent attacks on our founding have highlighted America's history related to race. These one-sided and divisive accounts too often ignore or fail to properly honor and recollect the great legacy of the American national experience. Our country's valiant and successful effort to shake off the curse of slavery and to use the lessons of that struggle to guide our work toward equal rights for all citizens in the present. Viewing America as an irredeemably and systematically racist country cannot account for the extraordinary role of the great heroes of the American movement against slavery and for civil rights. A great moral endeavor that, from Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King Jr., was marked by religious fellowship, goodwill, generosity of heart, an emphasis of our shared principles, and an inclusive vision for the future. Folks, I want to say something about racism here. Larry Elder shared
He's a Larry Elder fan.
Okay. I don't have it in front of me right now. Let me see if I can pull it up here in a little bit. But basically, he said something to the effect of this. Racism is dead or is dying. Okay, now do we still have racism in our country? Absolutely. Do we have racism from all sides? Absolutely. I think it's inherent in some people. Okay. Do we have racism causing injustice and a massive systemic, as they keep saying, systemic? Nobody talked about systemic until this past year, by the way. It entered because that's what the propagandists do, is they give you pretty words to use, like social distancing and conspiracy theory, which was given to us by the CIA in 1968 to, reverse the trend of people challenging the Warren Commission's report on the JFK assassination. People still roll that off their tongues in speaking about free thinkers, because free thinkers are bringing up opportunities to think outside the box. And instead of making the effort to think outside the box, people are more easily able to say conspiracy theory. And they have no idea that the CIA impregnated that into our culture, because the biggest violation of our government happened in 1963 with the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and it was an absolute conspiracy by the CIA and Lyndon Johnson, and we know more and more about that than we ever did. But you got guys like Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather and all these jackasses that people revere because they're caught in nostalgia. Meanwhile, they were the Rachel Maddows and the Anderson Coopers and the Cuomos of that era, and still propagandists, because in 1975 we found out that they were absolutely, the CIA had 400 assets in our media at the time. Okay? So what's important to understand here is that we have been revering the wrong people. And we have to change this.